Hey, peace and blessings. It's your brother Sorry back with another one. Yeah, man. Appreciate all the love and support as always, man. I gotta, big y'all up, man. Peace to the true and living. Gotta big up the true and living. Appreciate all the support, man. Appreciate all the love, all the comments, everything. Y'all are really I don't know. Y'all are the feedback is very motivational, so I appreciate it. Um Sorry for the wait, man. I know I've been kind of away for a little second. Wanted to do some kind of fun today. I don't know. I've been brainstorming on another playlist to add um, to some of our existing material. It's still gonna be material out the book. Now this is now with some of this material, we often talk about the universality of a lot of this stuff. Um, I'm gonna go into. I know you probably see the video. I'm gonna go into the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, but I'm just gonna do the first law to kind of. I don't know. I'm gonna do the first law out of the 48 Laws of Power, um, but I'm gonna cross reference it. I'm gonna filter it through through some of the um, ideas out of True Master Volume 2. So you can kind of see how to use this material kind of practically. And you can see how you can take other material, let's say like you might be reading something else, and you can filter it through this language and filter it through this perspective of thinking. So um, we'll go ahead and get started. So when I do these, it'll probably be like the list, you know what I mean? Instead of just going straight out of the book. But the list, the first out of the list, the first law of the 48 laws of power would be the first law of power: never outshine the master. Okay, the commentaries given on that: always ensure that those above you feel superior in your desire to impress or please them. Do not go too far in displaying your talents, lest you accomplish the opposite: inspire fear and insecurity. It's a balancing act where you must show your value without overshadowing others. Okay, so that's the little snippet off of the first law of power, right? So never outshine the master. You feel me? So we're gonna go into some of this true master, volume two, self to others, you did, and we're gonna kind of extract a couple of teachings out of that kind of correspond with that. So in true master world, true master language, you see what I'm saying? And it's going to differentiate. It's going to differentiate slightly from what's in the experiential. A lot of times, some of the stuff that I mentioned or what have you, like I'm calling this what I'm about to talk about, the language of positions. In the experiential, that may be construed as a symbol. You see what I'm saying? It's because it's something you give your attention to. So the language in the experiential and what I'm talking about in True Master is slightly different, but if you're familiar with the experiential, you'll be able to follow what I'm talking about in that same vein. So, um, all right, the first law is to not outshine the master. Okay, so how does that even correspond to this TM? You see what I'm saying? The TM. How does that correspond to TM? Okay, I'm gonna read a little section out of TM called "The Language of Position." Right. All right. So this goes into the whole idea of the master. Um, don't outshine the master. So if there's a master and there's a subordinate, there must be some hierarchical distinction. What we talking about? So let's get into that. Okay. So in true master, how we deal with that is okay. Language of position. When we refer to the energy in quotes, we are referring to the cycles within various cycles of energetic fluctuations that happen in and around us unceasingly. The breaks, in quotes, the ups and downs of life, the waters of Nun. It communicates via the language of events. All right. Building, okay, because somebody gonna tell me I don't believe in the language of events. Okay, when you have a dream, don't you interpret the dream as an event? And it's a language, ain't it? And it has some sort of meaning, ain't it? So I talk about your environment communicating with you when you dreaming, right? Don't you interpret the meaning of the environment? Yeah, that's your environment communicating with you. So everything I'm talking about at the bare minimum, it exists on the level of a dream. And how we talked about in a previous video, we talking about bardos and stuff like that. You know, that goes a little bit further in that how dream interpretations can be applied to waking phenomena. That's a whole nother conversation, whole video on it. But I digress. Okay, it communicates via the language of events. Building a structure suggests establishing a position, deciding what you want and making a decision. Deciding what you want and making the decision. Separating the undifferentiated into the differentiated. From uncertainty to certainty. You know what you want to do. Okay. How does one become two if one is all there is to have? All right. Phi is used as the measurement that divides one into two. Okay. Anybody who knows anything about tarot cards, the sun card is the number 19. The sun card is representative of Phi as far as tarot is concerned, however it may go. Okay. It ties into the number 19 and the golden ratio, right? Hierarchical structures emulate emanation from the one to the many. We've done a couple of videos about the idea from the one to the many. Go back to the video where I talk about you know everything, numbers is principles. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Establishing a position is like establishing a point. What is a point in Euclidean geometry? A undefined concept upon which the geometry is built. A undefined concept upon which the geometry is built. Points have no length, area, or volume, or any other dimensional attribute. A structure, geometry, is built around the initial conceptual point. This is the concept of getting ahead of the energy, right? This summons some principle to stimulate the structure. Although a structure is a type of pattern, you see what I'm saying? It crystallizes a static frequency range, establishing a position, thus marrying it to some intangible principle. Structure is designed to control the energy, right? So we get into different concepts like that. Controlling the energy, transforming the energy, all that stuff like that. You get into that in the book. The language of positions also can also be likened to the concept of hierarchy in nature. So when we talk about positions, we're talking about hierarchy in nature from a particular context. Remember, okay, this is me filtering a martial art through the experiential, and the output is true master. So positions in martial arts might look like this. You know what I'm saying? That might be a position in martial arts or what have you, hand positions or whatever case may be, and other things of that nature in the context of martial arts. So the idea of positions takes on different forms from an experiential perspective that would probably correspond more to what's being called symbols. But when we get into the language of positions, we're dealing with hierarchy in nature. We're dealing with the master and the disciple, or the person who is subordinate to the master, as we were talking about in the first law of the 48 laws of power. Okay, so let's see here. From the periodic table of elements to governmental representatives to the grades and levels of a secret society, all of this deals with the language of position. Much of the inspiration of our use of position has been taken from a martial context, so we also use the concept of position as a cheat for speed as it pertains to space and time. So when we get into positions, basically what it's saying, as it goes on a little bit further in the book, the significance of even making that distinction would be like different positions have different responsibilities, different positions have different levels of authority, different levels of subordination, different consequences associated with them, just different things or whatever, whatever have you. You see what I'm saying? Like an example, like let's say you know, if you have an issue with a judge or something like that, or whatever case may be, the judge is protected by, I believe, a supremacy clause. So if you have an issue with the judge, as long as he's acting in within his delegated authority, you got to take that up with the state. You got to prove that he's acting outside of the gambit of a judge in order to deal with him personally, to get to that position or that level of him on a personal level. He has to have accosted you outside of his delegated authority. As long as he's acting within his delegated authority, he's insulated by the state itself. So that's an example of that. So let's get into something else. Okay, another aspect of this whole thing, this whole master and subordinate idea that's mentioned in that first law of power: never outshine the master. So we've kind of like framed the master subordinate relationship within the confines of the language of position. Each position has its own level of authority. Each position has its own it has its own consequences and duties and various things of that nature. It's a station, so to speak, or whatever case may be, its own responsibilities and everything like that. Now let's get into more of the punchline. Okay, so it said never outshine the master. Why must a person never outshine the master? Right? Because you will inspire insecurity and things in the master. Now, what is a roundabout way of saying that? So we dealing with I don't know, we thinking more on the theme level or whatever case may be. Okay, this is a section out of True Master, page 101. Fear of exploitation, right? This is why you don't outshine the master, right? Fear of exploitation. Fear of exploitation leads to responding incorrectly to the energy and being exploited. Fear of exploitation leads to being exploited, right? Okay, so when there is a fear of exploitation, the individual will respond in one of several ways, mostly based on the intensity of the incoming energy as perceived by them based on memories that they may subconsciously compare to the event. If the intensity is more than what they can handle at the time, relative to the integrity of their structure, physical, emotional, or otherwise, but they have not yet been overtaken, they will seek to slow down time or increase the amount of data they are perceiving, focusing on details of the situation that may have otherwise escaped them. So they're trying to slow down time or delay the inevitable, as it would seem, focusing on details of situation that may have otherwise escaped them to find the relevant details that allow them better control of the situation. This slowing down often causes procrastination and allows you to be more easily exploited. Also, when the initial emotional interaction happens and your first mind speaks, which is usually the proper response to the energy, which is your highest emotional arousal, as it's called by some, which is your compass through life in navigating the energy using your first mind or what have you. This procrastination and analysis paralysis will cause you to drown out the higher mind and replace it with decisions influenced by accumulated mental baggage. All right. Thus, it will force you to respond incorrectly to energy. Remember, we talk about patterns, we talk about proper and improper responses to energy. Remember, we talk about triangulating certain situations in your life and see when you perform the best and everything like that, knowing, okay, the next time this pattern arises or whatever case may be, this is the proper response or whatever case may be. This is how I get a better outcome or what have you. Okay, so hesitation or inaction due to fear of retribution is another form of procrastination. All right. Different things, symbols represent different things to different people. Symbols are condensed information. Thus, unique experiences determine what the symbol means to them. Nothing has any inherent meaning but what you give it. Symbolism is the unity of the faiths, right? Another, because every faith has some manner of symbolism, and at the same time, the subconscious mind operates off a certain level of a certain baseline as far as the collective consciousness of society and as a whole. Another product of the fear of exploitation is jumping to conclusions, because you have a programmed understanding of a situation, so you assume the current situation will be like that, so you race to those details, jump to conclusions before the energy legitimately unfolds. Right? It's a difference between jumping to conclusions and kind of seeing certain fractals unfold. You see what I'm saying? When we say when we're dealing with patterns and everything like that, you're dealing with fractals of a situation. So you know when the situation is at horizon is heading to its climax or what have you. Just jumping to conclusions or whatever case may be is, let's say you had a bad experience with somebody who got red hair, and every time you see somebody with red hair, you trip. You see what I'm saying? So that would be like the difference between the two. Um, this also forces an incorrect response to the energy because the energy did not dictate that the other situation's response was appropriate in this situation. All right. Again, we're getting into proper and improper responses to a given stimulus or what have you. A structure allows you to capture the sweet spot between too much and not enough. When you have a structure, you have some sort of metric to gauge what you're doing or whatever the case may be. It's some sort of organized fashion. Remember how we were saying in the other video and everything like that? Um, my subconscious tendencies come out when I eat a bag of chips. You see what I'm saying? But I have no system in how I eat a bag of chips or whatever the case may be. So whatever my subconscious mind is trying to convey to me while I'm eating a bag of chips, I have no way to recognize it. It's disordered unless something drastic happens. I chip a tooth or something like that. You see what I'm saying? But a lot of times the messages the mind delivers conform to systems and things or what have you. So if there's a system in place or whatever, you have a little bit think the parts of the system have functions and things like that, and you can kind of get the messages a little bit more clear. Okay, so the expression of a principle can be balanced or unbalanced. Structures help set that balance. So in dealing so in dealing with the energy, it's too much or not enough, and it's all relative to the situation, but the energy will always tell you what to do. Respond within the energy to your highest emotional arousal. Exploitation is not always only physical. A person can be exploited mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, etc. Fear is the root cause of responding to the energy incorrectly. So okay, so we kind of went around the world on that one. But yeah, but when we get into the first law of power, we start talking about let me see here, outshining the master. The correlation with true master would be the idea of there being a language of positions or a hierarchical structure in most of the things that we do. We had a whole video about God, big, low, uppercase G and lowercase g or whatever case may be. We got homonyms and stuff like that. So that's not exactly the same thing. And how we were talking about we're not when we say peace to the gods or whatever case may be, we're not all the time referencing the source. In a lot of cases, when we say when we refer to some human being as a god or whatever, he's just an individual that's good at whatever he does. It's a hierarchical distinction. And in that hierarchical distinction, it comes with its own set of circumstances or what have you. And you see what I'm saying? Within that, the other side of not outshining the master is once you acknowledge the hierarchical distinction or whatever case may be, to outshine the master, because there's legends and things or whatever case may be, disciples and students being killed by their master for producing works greater than their master. So it's all kind of allegory in that outside of just, you know, the 48 laws of power, what have you. But in true master, that idea is condensed down into the fear of exploitation. Now, I'm going to tell you a modern, a modern rendition of that, the fear of exploitation and not outshining the master and all that stuff like that. Okay, with everything's everybody's talking about with this AI thing. You see what I'm saying, in the singularity, and people talking about how the AI, you know what I'm saying, blackmailed the guy, and the AI called the hitman from the dark web. You know, you did, and the AI has an aversion to being shut down. You see what I'm saying? When they try to shut the AI down, it responds negatively, and it tries to trick them and do certain things or whatever to avoid being shut down or deleted, however it may go for the AI in that perception. Now, in the idea of not outshining the master, you dealing with us as human beings or whatever as the masters of civilization as it would stand right now or whatever case may be in the face of being outpaced by something else. You see what I'm saying? In a reasonable amount of time, probably about 2 years if as a ballpark or whatever by some people's calculations. Um, yeah, so as far as that, that's a real world experience of the master being outshined. That is this fear of exploitation that I'm talking about in True Master or whatever case may be. Fear of exploitation can take on many forms, not just in this, but in this particular law of power, however it may go, or whatever. Outshining the master. When you outshine the master, you evoke the fear of exploitation. He fears of being overtaken or what have you. And that fear of being overtaken or what have you is manifesting for us in our modern times with this idea of the singularity, but it also manifests in various other ways or what have you. Um, yeah, it's like I said before, it's legends and things of apprentices and disciples being killed by their masters for outshining the master. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I had for today. I was just trying to, y'all tell me what y'all think about the play on, the 48 laws of power and stuff like that. We can do some more of that. I mean, we can do a playlist of the 48 or what have you, cross reference it with some more of that TM. But I just want to kind of, when you read some of the TM or whatever case may be, how you can kind of, you know, how it's how it applies to some of the other material that's already out there. It's the same stuff or it's the same things that you always have been seeing or whatever, but it's just a different lens to view it through or whatever, so you can potentially get something different out of it. So that's all I have for today. You like what you've been hearing, man. Like and subscribe. Appreciate all the support. Everybody be safe. Peace and blessings. Catch y'all on the next one.